When I was a kid, I had a cockatiel named Caesar. He would pick food out of my mouth. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. Why am I talking about Caesar, my cockatiel? Well, because my dad worked for Foster Farms, and it was illegal for the family to own a bird if you worked for Foster Farms chicken, because the idea was there's these avian bird diseases where you'd bring something into a chicken house and it would kill hundreds and thousands of chickens if you weren't careful. That's going into the price of eggs, and that's a big bread and butter home issue that we all have to deal with, and Trump has to deal with, and his administration has promised to deal with it right here in this article at Breitbart News. Exclusive. Trump's USDA Secretary, Brooke Rollins, on lowering egg prices. We're on it. Going to do everything we can to address it.
There is no doubt that the price of eggs is way too high. I want to show y'all something. I brought a chart. You can see the price of eggs, y'all. This is over the last 40 years. You can see the cost of eggs during the Trump years, right? This is 18, 19, 20, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is the last 4 years under Joe Biden. Listen, policy matters. Overregulating matters. Putting too much cost into the market matters. So yes, avian flu is a massive issue right now. We've been dealing with it in this country for the last few years. My very first briefing on my first half day, which was Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, was on this exact issue. Next week, we'll be rolling out more tools in the toolkit on how to approach it. But this is going to take just a little while to bring these prices back down after the last 4 years.
And there's Brooke Rollins, U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA. Secretary Brooke Rollins told Breitbart News last week that President Trump and his administration are keenly focused on lowering the price of eggs in the United States and prepared to take any and all actions needed to do so. Now, there's a lot of news that does not affect all of us, but the price of eggs affects all of us because everything we eat has eggs in it. The beloved Miss TenNapel goes shopping. She buys whole flats of eggs because I like 2 eggs every morning for breakfast. 2 eggs. But by the way, even at $7 for a dozen, it's still one of the cheapest sources of protein that you can buy. Go try and do that. Get the same amount of weight of eggs as a steak or something in protein. It'll cost you 100 times more. So even so I'm not, I'm only saying we've all experienced the price hike. And Trump is on it. And this is also a place where we saw Elizabeth Warren right around the Super Bowl making fun of Trump, saying the price of eggs are still bad. Trump, you broke a campaign promise. And Chuck Schumer, you broke a campaign promise. As if Trump could just, turn a handle and change the prices of eggs overnight. This is going to take some work. And it's going to deal with this threat of an avian flu, which I hate to say it, but it goes into vaccines. Let's get my channel into trouble, people. Rollins, who was confirmed by the U.S. Senate on Thursday as Trump's Secretary of Agriculture, spoke to Breitbart News on Friday afternoon. On her first full day, Rollins said that one of the very critical parts of Trump's mandate to lower food prices and combat inflation, as she intends to be part of the leading charge to make that happen, she says, first of all, it's very clear that the Trump campaign campaigned on significant and transformational changes, unquote. Rollins told Breitbart News, quote, having been next to him for 3 years at the White House, having launched the America First Policy Institute to continue the America First policies beyond President Trump, when I launched it, I didn't know he was going to run again. And that wasn't even really part of the plan. But we knew when the next conservative administration came in and we wanted to be ready. And I believe just so sincerely that our team in the last Trump administration was ready. And then when that opportunity came again, we would prepare for that day. So when the president obviously ran again and began to talk directly to the American people, it was border security. It was peace through strength. It was education opportunity. But right up there was food prices as a top promise. And so this is a question of, can he deliver on that promise, people? Do you believe he can Trump get the price of eggs down? Is he a magician? Is he a wizard? Is he just a brilliant 4D chess political tactician? In many of his interviews, In many of his campaign stops, he talked about what happened under Joe Biden and the inflation rates and what that has done to moms who are trying to buy groceries. I'm a mom of 4 teenagers. Hey, I'm a dad of 4 kids. I feel this like everybody else does. It's really imperative to me, and it's very top of the list of work that has to be done. I'm going to help the president effectuate his vision on this issue of food prices, specifically with eggs. Food prices have continued to rise. The recent economic numbers released earlier this month show that the inflation that soared under former President Biden was much worse than anyone in Washington realized, because guys, all of the numbers we were given under Biden were all faked. All of the inflation was worse than was reported because they were trying to make it look rosier for him. The cost of food was worse than was reported to make him look good, including, most particularly, the price of eggs. The egg industry has been rocked, not just by inflation, but by avian flu infecting hens nationwide, leading to shortages so bad that some stores are even implementing limits on how many eggs a customer can buy. And as you guys know, as a resource gets more scarce, right, the cost goes up. If an egg becomes as rare as a diamond, it starts to cost like a diamond. You want it to be common and cheap, just for America's health. And for my breakfast every morning, I want my 2 eggs. I might have to cut down to 1 egg and cut in some Spam. Put some Spam in there. Ooh, toasted on the pan. Spam. Ooh, so good. Rollins told Breitbart News on Friday that as she was voted on by the U.S. and sworn into the USDA secretary, that she rushed immediately into briefings Thursday afternoon on egg price issues, and that she has spoken to President Trump and other top White House economic advisors like National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett about the issue.
Well, sure. What is the plan? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, so again, the Biden plan was to just, kill chickens. And they spent billions of dollars just randomly killing chickens within a perimeter where they found a sick chicken. And so I just went to the grocery store. I shopped for our family in part because I love to look at prices. And there were no eggs at the store yesterday, just a few. And so that happened because they killed all the chickens. And so what we need to do is have better ways with biosecurity and medication and so on to make sure that the perimeter doesn't have to kill the chickens. We have a better, smarter perimeter. And so having a smart perimeter is what we're working on, and we're finalizing the ideas about how to do that with the best scientists in government. And that's the kind of thing that should have happened a year ago. And if it had, then egg prices would be, a lot better than they are now. But the avian flu is a real thing. And by the way, it's spread mostly by ducks and geese. And so think about it. They're killing chickens to stop the spread, but chickens don't really fly. The spread is happening from the geese and the ducks. And so why does it make any sense to have a big perimeter of dead chickens when it's the ducks and the geese that are spreading it?
Well, the Department of Agriculture policy has been to kill those chickens, as you know, but we'll watch for the details of that.
Sure. She said to expect major actions this week on egg prices from the Trump administration, though she did not provide much detail on specifically what those actions will be. Quote, my very first briefing, I think I was voted on around noon yesterday. I was sworn in around 3. I took a couple pictures, and then I immediately went into a briefing on avian flu and egg prices with the team at the USDA, Rollins told Bright. Well, I like that. Don't you like that? No dilly-dally. You don't get a parade. Get to work. And she went straight to work with the USDA. I like that. I can't believe it happened that quick. Get used to the whirlwind that is the Trump administration for the next 4 years. It's time to sit down and get to work. Obviously, there's not an easy solution to this, but one thing you got to do is they've had to kill a ton of birds, a ton of chickens that are layers. You have to, if you find one, infected bird in a chicken house, you got to kill not only all the birds in that house, but probably any houses that are in connection to it, because you have sparrows going back and forth with nests in the chicken roofs and all that stuff going back and forth, passing avian bird flu, could be going through the food, and they have to just kill them all. Hundreds and thousands, millions of birds get put down. So you have to replace all the birds. You have to clean all the chicken houses, like fumigate. I don't know what you do to get rid of a virus, but practically burn it to the ground. Just sterilize it. Then put in all new chickens. They have to get to a certain number of months old before they can start laying. So that's all a loss of profit while you replace the birds. It's no different than a California wildfire. You got to go in and buy, the government needs to reimburse places like Foster Farms and Tyson Chicken for those birds and get the eggs flowing again. Now, Trump talked about a long-term plan of lowering energy prices, which helps a percentage of it. But this avian bird thing in the eggs is a massive, it's an emergency. Remember, eggs are in all baked goods. Chefs use them. Eggs are in everything. Egg whites. I think I had about 8 people in my office at the USDA about it, she said, regarding that first meeting. I've already talked to the president about it. I've talked to my counterparts in the White House over at the NEC, Kevin Hassett, and we're not ready to announce anything yet, but next week I'll be talking about much more specifically. I want to really get my arms around it before I start talking too much, but there are some real paths we can take, she explained. I think the real important for the audience to understand, these egg prices are at an almost 40-year high, and that this has been an upward trajectory for a while now. Now, under the 4 years under Trump, they came back down in 17, 18, 19, and 20. At least in recent history, those years we had some of the lowest prices on record compared to GDP. But if the last 4 years have had an absolute spiked egg prices, and it's not surprising because we know the Biden approach of more regulation and higher taxes spiked costs for everyone. I don't want to cast blame or point fingers, which, by the way, guys, I think is wise, to not look for excuses, but I want solutions. But we knew this avian flu was a problem over the last several years, and why more wasn't done to address it 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I'm still trying to figure it out, but we're on it. We're on it. And we're going to do everything we can to address it. Now, I'll tell you guys the bad news, you may not like it, is you have to vaccinate chickens to get rid of the avian flu. You can either kill them or vaccinate them. Most farmers are for mass vaccinations of chickens. Now, do you trust Big Pharma to produce vaccines for chickens? Because that's the answer, unfortunately. Take your pick. Asked for more specification what the USDA might consider. Okay, here we go. Threats of inflation and avian flu. Rollins suggested possibly biosecurity measures, as well as efforts to repopulate farmers' flocks, which we just said you can replace the chickens, but also biosecurity, which means the V word. We're going to vax them. We're looking at every tool in the toolkit, including biosecurity measures, she told Breitbart News. There are some successful models out there that the USDA is implementing on a much smaller scale. Maybe with all the cancellation of DEI programs, we could talk about DOGE too, but identifying additional funding for our farmers to be able to protect against avian flu, really important in terms of biosecurity measures. There are other countries in the world that use vaccines for their egg layers and have none of these issues. That's a complicated solution, because there are some implications that have to be considered. But listen, when Canada's price of eggs is much lower than ours, and they're using that approach, that's something we need to take a very strong look at. So we're going to be vaccinating chickens, it looks like. That's how you protect them from the avian flu. And then you have all these rumors going around that we're all being mutated because of vaccines in the chickens, which I don't believe in, but I don't trust the government either at the same time. Good news is Trump's on it. They're going to do their best. They're going to replace those populations and vaccinate the chickens. What do you guys think? What do you guys say? Is the price of eggs hurting your family right now? Because, man, it is skyrocketing on us. And every time I say to the beloved Miss Tenaple, let's get some breakfast and let's have some eggs, she looks at me like, you're spending our gold. I'm Doug in exile.